My stepmom tried charging me rent in my own house, so I showed her my name on the deed. Sandra slammed her coffee mug down so hard, coffee jumped over the rim. If you're not paying rent by Friday, you're out. I looked around the table at all of them. James was 24 and hadn't worked in 2 years. Melissa brought people over every weekend, left dirty cups everywhere, and somehow I was always the one cleaning up after them. Wait, I said. James doesn't pay rent. Sandra didn't even blink. My children are still getting established, she pointed at Melissa. And she's in college. That's different. Something in me finally snapped. For 4 years since Dad married Sandra, I'd cooked and cleaned while her kids treated the place like a hotel. I paid most of the bills, too. I was done. I'm not paying rent, I said. Sandra pushed her chair back and yelled for my dad. He walked in looking confused, and Sandra pointed at me. Your daughter refuses to contribute. She needs to learn responsibility. Dad looked at me, then at her. Ruby, maybe we should all calm down and talk this through. No, I said. Let's talk. I won't be paying rent because this is my house. The whole room went still. James laughed first. You really expect us to believe that? Sandra stared at me with a tight little smile. Ruby, stop being ridiculous. I didn't look away. Grandma and Grandpa transferred the house to me before they died. Sandra's face changed fast. The color drained right out of it. That's not true, she said, but her voice had gone thin. She shoved Dad's phone at him. Tell her. Dad took too long to answer. Then, without looking at Sandra, he said, It is true. Your grandparents put the deed in Ruby's name years ago. Sandra just stared at him. You knew? Dad rubbed his forehead. Yes. For a second, nobody moved. Then James laughed again. Only this time it sounded nervous. Okay, funny joke. Can we be done now? It's not a joke, I said. I stood up, pulled out the folder I'd kept in my room, and dropped it on the table. The deed was right on top. My name, the address, county stamp, all of it. Melissa leaned over first, then James, then Sandra. I watched all three of their faces fall apart one by one. Sandra flipped through the papers with shaking hands. This has to mean something else. It means exactly what it says, I said. So since you wanted to talk about rent, let's do that. I sat back down. Starting next month, James pays $600. Melissa pays $600. Sandra, you pay $800. The mug slipped out of Sandra's hand and shattered on the floor. James shoved his chair back. This is insane. He turned to Dad. Tell her she can't do this. Dad looked at the deed again and said very quietly, legally, she can. Melissa's eyes filled up. What if we can't pay? I looked right at her. Then you'll need somewhere else to live. That's the rule, right? Sandra started pacing the kitchen, dragging her fingers through her hair. No, there has to be a way around this. David, do something. I crossed my arms. A way around what? The fact that you tried to throw me out of my own house? James slammed his fist onto the table so hard the silverware jumped. This is our home too. No, I said. It's my home. You've just been living in it for free. He opened his mouth again, but I cut him off. And that ends now. Sandra turned to Dad like he was her last chance. Talk to her. She'll listen to you. Dad finally looked straight at me. He knew he had no ground to stand on. Ruby, he said quietly, maybe there's some middle ground. I laughed once. Middle ground? Where was my middle ground 5 minutes ago when she told me to pack my bags? Nobody answered that. The clock on the wall was so loud I could hear every second. Melissa was crying now, trying not to make noise. James kept clenching his jaw. Sandra pulled out a chair and sat down. Please, she said, and that was the first time I'd ever heard her use that word with me. We can work something out. I took out my phone. We are. I'm texting the family lawyer right now. Real lease, real deadlines, real deposits. James leaned forward. You're actually serious? I typed without looking up. 2 months up front. If you can't do that, start packing. Sandra reached for my phone, but I pulled it back. Ruby, please. No, I said. You wanted me to learn responsibility. Good news. I did. I hit send, set the phone on the table, and looked at all three of them. End of the month. Pay rent or get out. Now they're saying I'm heartless for charging rent. Was I wrong?